The farm lights went out. For one breath, there was only Akila's wind moving over the dry grass and the low growl in Archer's throat. Then Dane moved. I had never seen him move like that before. He was not fast in the way young men are fast. He did not hurry. He did not stumble over himself or bark orders just to hear his own voice. He became clean motion. Every step had already been decided before his boot touched the ground. "Mara," he called again, calm and sharp. "Cellar." From inside the house came the sound of a lock sliding home. "I can help," I said. Dane did not look at me. "You will." Those two words hit harder than any speech. He went to the equipment shed and pulled open the gun cabinet. Not the little lockbox where he kept the farm rifle. The real cabinet. The one I had seen only once, by accident, when Mara thought I was outside hauling feed. Inside were weapons that did not belong to a farmer. A long rifle with a worn stock and a scope wrapped in old cloth, a sidearm in a black holster, 2 shotguns, ammunition sorted in metal tins, a battered combat knife, a folded tactical vest that looked older than me and twice as mean. I stared. Dane noticed. "Later," he said. He handed me the rifle I trained with. Simple, reliable, familiar enough that my hands found the grip before my fear could argue. "Load it." My fingers shook once, only once. I hated that he saw it. He did not mention it. Outside, Archer's growl deepened. Not loud. Loud was warning. This was lower, tucked beneath the sound of the wind, the kind of sound that vibrated in the bones. He was facing the south ridge, plated shoulders lifted, tail still as iron. The engines came closer. 3 lights, then 4, then the shapes broke through the dust. Spacer bikes first, ugly things patched together from stolen parts and bad judgment, low engines whining, stabilizers kicking dust behind them, running dark except for the front lamps. Behind them came a crawler with armor welded over the cab and a turret mounted in the back. They came like men who had done this before. No banners, no warning shots, no shouted demands, just engines, dust, and intent. Dane stepped out of the shed with his old rifle slung low. "North fence line," he said to me, "behind the water trough. Do not fire until I do." "You think they'll talk?" "No." I swallowed. Dane looked at me then, really looked. "Craven." "Yeah?" "Scared?" I wanted to lie. It rose in me out of habit, as natural as breathing. Then I looked past him at Archer, standing between the farm and the dust. "Yes," I said. Dane nodded. "Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. Panic means you forgot what to do. Don't panic." That was Dane, comfort wrapped in sandpaper. I ran for the trough. The world narrowed as I moved. Porch, fence, scrub, dry grass, my boots hitting packed dirt, rifle against my shoulder, the smell of dust and old metal. Archer pacing beside me for 3 steps before veering off toward the broken stone wall near the goat pen. He did not need a command. That should have scared me. Instead, it steadied me. We had trained for predators. We had trained for ambush from brush, for claws from the dark, for the terrible speed of hungry things. We had not trained for spacers in armor with guns and engines. But danger has a shape if you look long enough. Dane took position near the porch post, half in shadow, rifle resting against his shoulder like it belonged there more than his arm did. The farmhouse behind him looked smaller than it ever had. Weathered wood, patched roof, one lantern burning low behind a shutter before Mara killed it. The spacer bikes slowed at the boundary markers. For a moment, I thought maybe they would stop. Then one of them raised a weapon and fired into the air. The crack split the dusk. Goats screamed from the pen. Something metal pinged off the wind collector. A laugh carried over the dust. Dane fired once. The lead bike jerked sideways and threw its rider into the dirt. There was no warning after that. The farm exploded into noise. Spacer rounds chewed the fence rails. Dust kicked around the trough where I crouched. The crawler's turret swung toward the house with a mechanical whine that turned my blood cold. I raised my rifle and forgot everything. The sight bounced. My breath came too fast. The spacer in my scope blurred behind dust and motion. I squeezed the trigger anyway. Missed. A round hit the trough and sprayed water across my face. I ducked hard, cursing. Dane fired again. Someone screamed. "Breathe!" he shouted. I hated that he could still teach in the middle of being shot at. Breathe. The word cut through the noise. I pressed my back against the trough, in through the nose, out through the mouth, rifle up, stock tight, sight picture. Don't chase the target. Let the target enter the shot. A spacer moved along the fence line, bent low, weapon raised toward the house. I fired. He dropped behind the rail. I did not know if I killed him. I did not have time to find out. The crawler's turret opened up. Rounds hammered the porch. Wood burst apart. A window blew inward. The sound was enormous. Too big for the yard, too big for the sky. I saw Dane throw himself behind the porch steps as splinters filled the air. Then Archer moved. He came out of the brush, low and fast, not roaring, not posturing, nothing like the wild Ashta stories told in Aquila City taverns. He moved like a shadow with teeth. The second bike tried to swing around the goat pen. Archer hit it from the side. The rider never saw him. Bike, man, and beast went down in a shriek of metal and dust. Archer rolled with it, claws tearing at the engine casing, jaws snapping through the rider's arm guard like it was feed wrap. The spacer screamed. Archer slammed him into the ground and turned before the body stopped moving. "Archer!" I shouted. He ignored me. No, not ignored. He had already heard the next threat. A spacer on foot raised a shotgun toward him. I fired. This time I did not miss. The man spun and fell backward into the dust. My stomach lurched. I had shot predators before, animals trying to eat goats, things with claws and venom and empty eyes. This was different. A man had been standing. Then he was not. I froze there, rifle still up, finger stiff against the trigger. Then a round snapped past my ear close enough to heat the air. The world came back. I dropped behind the trough and vomited into the mud. Dane's voice cut through again. "Craven, I'm here." "Then act like it." I wiped my mouth with the back of my glove and forced myself up. The crawler was angling toward the house now, wheels grinding over brush, turret searching for Dane. The driver had armor over the windshield except for a narrow slit. Too narrow for me, too far. Dane fired at it anyway, rounds sparking off the welded plates. The crawler answered, and the porch post beside him burst apart. I saw him stagger. My heart stopped. "Dane!" He fell to one knee, then rose again with blood on his sleeve. Not dead. Not yet. The crawler rolled closer. I looked at Archer. He was near the goat pen, crouched over the second bike, plates lifted, sides heaving. Blood marked one shoulder. His or someone else's, I could not tell. He looked at me across the yard. There was no time for whistles. No room for commands. I shifted my eyes toward the crawler's rear wheel assembly. Archer's head tilted, then he ran. I fired at the crawler, not to hit anything important, just to make the turret turn. Rounds sparked off the side. The turret swung toward me. That was the longest second of my life. I saw the barrel line up. I saw my death in its dark little mouth. Then Archer hit the crawler from behind. Not enough to flip it. He was big, but not that big. But he slammed into the rear assembly with all the weight and fury Aquila had built into him. Claws found hoses, jaws found cables. Metal screamed. The crawler lurched. The turret fired high, tearing the top off the water collector instead of me. Dane moved. He came off the porch with something in his hand I had never seen before. Small, square, military. He did not run at the crawler. He walked into the open like a man late for an appointment. "Dane!" I yelled. He ignored me. The driver saw him too late. Dane threw the charge under the front axle and dropped flat. The explosion punched the yard in the chest. The crawler jumped, nose lifting, rear twisting hard as the damaged wheel assembly gave out. It crashed down sideways in a cloud of dust and sparks. The turret spun once, whining, then died. Silence did not come all at once. It leaked in slowly. First the engines cut, then the gunfire stopped, then the dust began to settle. Somewhere, a goat kept screaming until Mara shouted at it from inside the house, and somehow that was the sound that told me we were still alive. I stood too quickly and almost fell. The yard was wrecked. Fence broken, water collector torn open, porch chewed to splinters, smoke rising from the crawler, one bike burning near the stone wall. Dark shapes in the dust that I tried not to look at too long. Archer limped toward me. That broke something in me. I dropped the rifle and ran to him. His shoulder was torn where a round had scraped under one armor plate. Blood ran down his foreleg, dark in the dust. He snapped at me when I touched it, then stopped himself, jaws open, breath hot against my wrist. "Easy," I said, though my voice cracked. "Easy, I've got you." He made a low rumble that might have meant pain or anger or stop making that noise before I bite you. I pressed my forehead against his plated skull. "You stupid, beautiful monster." He huffed in my face. Dane limped over, rifle in one hand, blood running from his left arm. He looked at Archer, then at the destroyed crawler, then at me. "You two planned that?" "No," I said. Dane grunted. "Looked planned." That was the closest I had ever heard him come to admitting surprise. Mara came out of the house carrying the old shotgun and wearing the expression of a woman who had been denied a fair chance to use it. She saw Dane's arm and her face tightened. "You're bleeding." Dane looked down like the wound belonged to someone else. "It happens. I told you not to get shot anymore. I didn't agree." She marched down the steps and slapped him across the back of the head. He accepted it. Then she came to me. I expected a lecture. Maybe about dropping my rifle. Maybe about standing too high behind cover. Maybe about being foolish enough to bond my life to an ashta that could not tell the difference between bravery and madness. Instead, she put both hands on my face and looked me over like she was counting the pieces. "You hurt?" I shook my head. She pulled me close. I did not know what to do with that, so I just stood there, stiff as old fence wire, until my hands remembered how to hold on. That night, nobody slept, not properly. The bodies had to be moved, fires put out, Archer's wound cleaned, Dane's arm stitched. Mara cursed through every stitch, and Dane pretended pain was something that happened to other people. A Freestar patrol arrived near midnight after catching the emergency burst Mara had sent. They confirmed what Dane already knew. Spacers, small raiding band, likely scouting farms along the outer routes, hitting weak targets, stealing supplies, taking hostages if opportunity allowed. Weak targets. I looked at the broken porch, the bullet holes, the dead men in the dust. They had chosen wrong. By dawn, the patrol hauled away what remained of the Spacers and marked the wreckage for salvage. One deputy asked me questions, too many questions. How old was I? Where had I learned to shoot? Was that ashta registered? Did it attack on command? Did Dane maintain any restricted military equipment on the property? Dine answered before I could. Boy defended his home. Creature defended its handler. Equipment was farm salvage. The deputy looked at the destroyed crawler, then at the smoking hole where Dane's charge had gone off. "Farm salvage," he repeated. Dane stared at him. The deputy wrote something down and stopped asking questions. After they left, the farm felt too quiet. The sun came up bright, cruel, normal. Aquila did not care that men had died in our yard. The wind did not care. The dust settled on blood, the same as it settled on fence posts. I spent the day fixing what I could. That is what you do after violence, I learned. You pick up boards, you patch holes, you wash blood from places it should never have been. You feed the animals because animals do not understand trauma, only hunger. You keep moving because if you stop too long, the stillness starts asking questions. Archer stayed near me despite his limp. Mara said he should rest. Archer disagreed with his whole body, so I worked slower, letting him follow. By evening, the worst of the damage was hidden but not healed. The porch still bore scars. One rail was gone entirely. The water collector wheezed like an old man. Burn marks blackened the ground near the south fence. Diane sat on the porch steps with his arm wrapped and his rifle across his knees. I found him there after feeding Archer. For a while, I thought he had fallen asleep. Then he said, "Sit." It was not an invitation. I sat. Archer lowered himself beside me with a heavy grunt. head near my boot. His breathing was steady but tired. I rested one hand on the ridge behind his skull. The sky was turning gold behind the hills. Not the soft kind of gold New Atlantis sold in advertisements. Aquila gold. Dusty, hard-earned. The kind that made every scar on the land show. Dane looked out over the farm. "You did well," he said. I waited for the rest. He glanced at me. That was the whole sentence. I looked down at my hands. They were still dirty, no matter how much I had scrubbed them. "I killed a man." "Yes, I thought I'd feel..." I stopped because I did not know the word. "Proud?" Dane asked. I flinched. He shook his head. "Only fools are proud the first time. Monsters are proud every time. The rest of us just remember." The wind moved through the porch posts. "I don't know if I'm the rest of us," I said. Dane was quiet for a long moment. Then he set his rifle aside. "I wasn't always a farmer. I figured that out around the time you blew up a crawler with farm salvage." One corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile. "You see Vanguard," he said. I looked at him. He kept his eyes on the horizon. "Long time ago. Before your mouth learned to run faster than your feet." "You were Vanguard?" "Among other things." I tried to imagine it. Dane in uniform. Dane flying somewhere beyond Aquila's dust. Dane taking orders from anyone. It did not fit, and yet suddenly it explained everything. The weapons, the way he moved, the way Mara never asked how he knew things no farmer should know. "What happened?" I asked. "Years happened." "That's not an answer. It is when you've lived enough of them." I waited. Dane sighed, and for the first time that day he sounded old. I joined because I thought service made a man clean. Thought if I wore the right patch and fought the right people, all the ugly inside me would finally have a purpose. I did not move. He reached into the inside pocket of his vest and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. Old cloth, folded carefully. He held it for a moment before opening it. Inside was a badge, not bright, not polished, not the kind of thing they pin on posters or recruitment feeds. This one was worn at the edges, the dark navy finish scuffed almost purple in places. The Vanguard mark caught the last sunlight in dull orange. It looked small in his hand. It felt heavy anyway. "I carried this through more systems than I can count," he said. "Lost good friends wearing it, saved people wearing it, made mistakes wearing it too." He turned it over with his thumb. "I left because I was tired, because I had seen enough young men confuse orders with purpose, because I wanted one patch of dirt no one could command me to abandon." "Why keep it?" "Because leaving something doesn't mean it meant nothing." He held the badge out between us. I stared at it. "I'm not Vanguard," I said. "No, I'm a thief from the well." "You were." "I've got a record." "Most people worth trusting have a past they're not proud of." I laughed once, bitter and short. "That your recruitment speech?" "No. If I were recruiting you, I'd lie better." I looked at him then. Dane's eyes were steady. "You defended this farm today," he said. "Not because there was profit in it, not because someone forced you. You stood your ground because people you care about were behind you." "Archer did most of it." Archer opened one eye, like he agreed. Dane glanced at him. "That beast followed your lead." "He usually does what he wants." "Then today, he wanted what you wanted." I did not have an answer for that. Dane held the badge a little closer. "I'm not telling you to join tomorrow. I'm not telling you to become me. I am telling you that there's a difference between running from your past and walking towards something better." The badge caught the light again. Orange over deep blue, like fire over night. "You've spent your life surviving, Craven. In the well. Out here. With him." He nodded toward Archer. "Surviving made you hard. Discipline made you useful. But purpose..." He paused. "Purpose makes a man choose what his strength is for." My throat felt tight. I hated that. What if I choose wrong? You will. I looked at him sharply. Dane shrugged. Everyone does. The trick is to stop pretending wrong choices are the end of the story. He placed the badge in my palm. I expected cold metal. It was warm from his hand. For a long time, I just held it. I thought about the well, about stolen food and narrow alleys, about the wrong pocket and the transport to Aquila, about the garbage bin shifting in the heat, about a starving Ashta with murder in his eyes, about rules I hated until they became the bones holding me upright. I thought about the spacer I shot. I thought about the farm still standing. I thought about Dane's words. Purpose makes a man choose what his strength is for. Mara stepped out onto the porch behind us, carrying 3 cups of calf like she had not been listening the whole time. She handed one to Dane, one to me, and set the third near Archer, who sniffed it and sneezed. "Don't give my Ashta calf," I said. Mara raised an eyebrow. "Your Ashta?" I looked down at Archer. He had already closed his eye again, one armored shoulder pressed against my leg. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Mine." Dane sipped his calf and winced. Mara noticed. "Arm hurting?" "Calf's worse." She smiled like she might forgive him someday. We sat there while the sun went down over the damaged fence line. No one told me what to do next. For once, that did not feel like abandonment. It felt like trust. I turned the badge over in my hand, feeling every scratch, every worn edge, every year Dane had carried before placing it with me. The Vanguard, the stars, a life beyond stealing, running, surviving. I was not ready. But for the first time in my life, I wondered if ready was something you became after you chose. Diane leaned back against the porch post and looked out over the land. "Think about it," he said. I closed my fingers around the badge. "I will." Archer rumbled in his sleep, and somewhere beyond Aquila's hard horizon, the first stars came out.